Today I'm working on my 2008 E90 335i. This car has 167,000 miles on it, and the turbos were changed about 40,000 miles ago. Actually, about like 30,000 miles ago. And the turbos that were put on here were used, and they had about 13,000 miles. They were bought off eBay. It was done by the previous owner, but he showed me all the documentation for it. So right now these turbos have around maybe 45,000 miles on them, and I noticed started to get wastegate rattle. Super common problem on these cars. There was an extended warranty from BMW that covered them, I believe 80,000 miles or 8 years, something like that. But on my car, I just noticed it. If you punch it, you hear it when it's cold. You know, there's plenty of videos on YouTube showing you how to test for wastegate rattle. You can disconnect these diaphragms here. These are the vacuum lines that run to the wastegates to see if your rattle comes and goes. It gets really pronounced. Mine was just barely starting, to be honest with you. I hear it. It's like when you push it and you let off, even at highway speeds, you just hear a bit of a clatter that comes and goes. And from what I had read, it's just your wastegates going out of adjustment. It gets to the point where you can't even adjust them anymore. You got to replace the turbo or rebuild that wastegate door inside the turbo. For now, I'm going to try the easiest method. There's two turbos, obviously. It's twin turbo. The front turbo, it's pretty much impossible to get to it to adjust, so we're not counting on that. They just say because of the way the head's designed and the way the motor runs, it's the rear turbo that wears out first anyway. So this video is going to be about adjusting the wastegate actuator arm. I did notice another video on YouTube that wasn't bad. It kind of gives you an idea, but I'm going to just go a little more in depth on this video. You can adjust it from the top just to give you an idea. You can just barely make it out. I'm going to try to zoom in on it. So that's the wastegate, and that's the arm. You could technically stick your arm in there and try to do the work with the hood open from the top, but I think it's probably going to be way too much of a pain in the ass. So what I'm going to try is adjusting them from underneath, jacking up the car, taking the wheel off. Just be advised that to do this, you're going to need a couple different wrench sizes. So I bought this kit from Sears. You can find it at any Sears. See if you can make out that part number there. Yeah, not really. Oh, you can kind of make it out there in the top right. So basically it's a wrench kit that comes with wrenches all the way from 4 mil all the way up to 11 mil, I believe. And you need a 10 mil wrench to actually back off the adjuster nut, and then you need a 4 mil or 4.5 mil wrench to actually rotate the wastegate arm. There's a little notch there. I'll show you guys in further detail when I have the under tray cover removed and I have the wheel off and we try to access it from there. So I guess this video is going to be just about trying to play with the rear wastegate to take out any slack through the adjustment, and then the front turbo, I'll see if it's even possible to try it, but I'm not counting on that. This is your first course of action if you're getting wastegate rattle. And you can do this a few times from what I've heard, and then it gets to the point where you can't take up any more slack in the wastegate arm, and the bushing inside the wastegate actuator is completely worn, and you're not able to fully seal your wastegate door anymore, and you'll get a low boost code. I'm not anywhere near that. It still pulls fine and spools up normal. I don't think I'm getting excessive lag or anything like that. I'm just at the first stages of hearing some wastegate rattle, and you know, I've had it for a year now, getting on 2 years, and just started. So I'm just trying to tackle it now while I can. When they completely conk out, I'm just going to upgrade the turbos. So first step is going to be removing the wheel and getting the car up in the air. I'll show you that when I'm at that stage. So I got the car jacked up now. I have an impact on Milwaukee M18. so I don't need to pop the wheels nuts loose before jacking up. This impact gun is great, by the way. Highly recommended if someone's looking for a really good impact. So I'm going to get the car supported on a jack stand now. So I got a jack stand underneath the control arm. I left this jack here for added security. I set the e-brake inside the car, and I put a brick behind the driver's side rear wheel to chock it for extra security. So now basically I want to get access to right in around here. So I'm going to take off this cover. There's a series of 8mm bolts. To remove it, I want to just at least lower it down from this side. So I'm going to do that now. So there's just a bunch of these 8mm bolts all around the under tray here. You just got to go at them one by one, and they're not super tight, so I just use a socket on the end of a bit driver. You know, for all I need, that's probably going to give me plenty of room. I don't have to drop the whole tray. So we'll get a look up on the turbos to see what's up. So I thought by getting underneath the car, it would make it a lot easier to get access to that, but it's just really tight under there. I don't mind that I did that extra bit of work because I now have the light shining from underneath, so I can get a good view of it. So basically, I'm going to recommend that you guys just, there's a little tab here. I'm going to recommend that you just press here and then lift up on it like that. Let's get this out of our way. So you can actually make it out here. So that's the lock nut. It's a 10mm, and that's the adjustment rod. So you have to loosen the 10mm by turning it toward the engine. I'll just get zoomed up on it right here. So you can see it's a threaded rod. That's exactly where we're going to be doing our work. It's a threaded rod, and there's a flat spot which you can just kind of make out right there. You're going to put a 4 or 4.5mm wrench on there and rotate that toward the shock tower, so toward the passenger side, and then the 10mm nut right there, you're going to rotate that toward the engine. And then first you'll start with the 10mm, obviously, take off the slack, because basically what happens is the Wastegate actuator wears out. I was hoping I could get a good view from down below so I could show you guys what happens. If I try to show you from above, I'm just going to block it with my hand. But maybe I'll see if I can keep the camera rolling up here, if I can get you guys a good view of what's going on with that arm. Because in my case, I played around with the bushing. The bushing itself, which goes inside the actual turbo housing, isn't, see if I can get that to focus. It isn't worn out that bad. It just seems like the rod is out of adjustment. Because if I play with it, it doesn't rock side to side so much. There's slack only on the arm and not really so much on the actual door. So it tells me that I could probably get some adjustment out of it and quiet it down for a while. So I'll see if I can get set up here so I can show you me playing with that and see if we can demonstrate what wears. So I'm focused in on the actuator arm and the actual point where it connects to the wastegate. I'm going to see if I can go underneath and play with that to show what the slack looks like. Yeah, I can barely get my hands on it. But you can hear that noise. So there's just a slack. If I were to get my hand on that bushing, let me see if I can get a screwdriver. imagine that sound. When you let off the gas or when you're idling, there's a little bit of slack in the bushing. It's not shot, it's not gone. I'm not getting any low boost codes or anything like that, but enough to make a noise. So that's why I need to adjust it. Hopefully you can hear me. I just said that I'm not getting any low boost codes or anything like that. I'm just getting the noise. And I really can't show you guys me adjusting, me playing with that by hand without getting in the way of the actual arm. But that's the sound. And the actual bushing right here, the whole arm, it's like a long elbow. That's fine. That's not, that doesn't have a lot of, like, you can't rock it side to side or up and down. It's not bad. It's just the rod itself has a bit of slack in it. Right now the car's off, so it's going to be holding it in the open position, and then when it would pull that close with vacuum to close it down as you build up boost, and when you hit your expected boost level, it closes the wastegate. So, but then if this rod has slack in it because the wastegate, because as it pulls it down, you'll pull it down, and then as it's putting pressure on it, it's quiet. But then when you let off, it goes back to this position and it dances around as the exhaust gases are down or going all around the actual wastegate door. So basically, as you let off the gas, you'll get this noise because, you know, these things naturally have a bit of slack in them because there's no lubrication. It's a wastegate, and it has to have a bit of expansion. But if you want to pick up or take up some slack, you know, you have to be careful. Like, there's a science to it. You don't want to just overdo it because then maybe you can screw up the adjustment. But right now I'm just going to the point where I'm going to take a couple threads. I'm going to rotate it a couple times to actually take up that slack and see if it makes a difference. And that's what this tutorial, that's what this video is going to be about, how to adjust basically just the rear one, because the front one's such a bitch to get to. And they say, you know, this takes care of the noise for most people anyway. On average, people are backing off that nut and turning the arm 2 to 2.5 turns. I guess you could say the average is 2 1/4 turns to actually make it so that it doesn't have any natural play in the rest position that it's in right now. So let's get started with that. I'm going to put a little mark with a magic marker on the arm to with a permanent marker just to have a reference point. So I put a mark on the actual rod. There's actually a flat spot on the rod anyway. That's where you stick your wrench, right beside where I've put my mark. There's a good view of it. So you could just use that as your reference point to see how many times you've turned. There's not a lot of wiggle room down there. That's why you want to get a stubby wrench set. First of all, not too many people are going to have a 4 mil or 4.5 mil wrench. But these are super small. So that's how small we're talking. Pretty short. So I'm going to use this to unlock that 10 mil. If I had the short stubby 10 mil, is not going to have enough leverage to break that bolt free. So I actually had to use this, and basically you got to play around with it, but you can just get enough room like that in between the body and that nut to actually get it on there and then give it a good turn. And once it cracks free, then it becomes finger loose instantly. I even had a 10 mil line wrench that I tried. But anyway, I just got it on there. I needed the leverage of a longer wrench to actually crack it free. So you should expect the same. It's not that hard, but you know, it's enough that you want to make sure you don't strip it out. Get it on there nice and good. Use a good wide tip wrench. And get enough room just between the body and the actual nut, and then you can crack it free. You have to use an open-ended. If you have something maybe just a bit shorter than this, just to show you scale, maybe something like that long would probably be perfect. So now we're going to start rotating with the 4.5 mil wrench on the rod. You can just make out where I've inserted my wrench. You can see it's just sitting on that groove. You got to hold it at an angle, and just, you know, I would recommend you use the 4.5 mil wrench. You know, and me just getting my hands all over that, I pretty much wiped off the permanent marker that I put on originally, but that's fine because you can just keep track of the rotation based on that notch. So I actually have it cocked at an angle so I can actually get that twisting room. It's pretty tight in there, so, but just giving you an idea, I had to back off you can see there I backed off the 10 mil nut a few turns so that as I rotate, it's going to pull in and not interfere. So, you know, that's the idea. I'm going to snug it down now and we'll play around with the rod to see if the noise changed. I'm going to do, right now I've done like 0.1 of a turn. I'm going to run it 2 turns, 2.25, and then we'll button it up and see how it sounds. And by the way, I'm doing all the work from the top, the bottom going. I just have the light shining from the bottom for the sake of it, but you don't have to jack up the car like this to do this. I taped off this washer fluid pipe to get out of my way, and I'm just sticking my left hand down there to do the work and just leaning on the motor, going by feel. You get a lot more leverage that way. Another piece of advice is once you first crack it free, you're going to want the 4.5 mil wrench that comes in this kit, the Sears Craftsman midget wrench kit. To start, gives you that little bit of wiggle room and slack because the head's a bit big. But then once you get about half a turn or about 180, you want to switch to the 4 mil. Because first of all, it's even smaller, it's shorter, and now that you've broken it free, it rotates a lot easier. Now, you can't do it by hand, you still need the wrench, but you don't need as much leverage now. And this fits on here dead tight, so it makes it easier for getting around the 180 bend. Once you get to 180, you would start hitting things with the other wrench and you have to go at weird angles, but this is short, so you can just rotate easy and maybe pick up on it with the 4.5 when you're coming back around. Because right now, as you can see, I've rotated it about maybe 200 degrees, and I'm going to come back around now and use the 4.5 to get rid of that, to get the first turn, the next turn started. Just a little tip. You want to switch it in between 4.5 and 4. Depending on what angle you're at and where you are in the rotation. So I've adjusted it. I went probably 2 3/4 turns, not, just past 2.5 to take up the slack. I would say I'm going to recommend you use the 4.5 mil wrench to loosen the rod to get it started, and then from there on just use the 4. I know I said go back and forth, but just use the 4 the rest of the way because you have flow rotation. But the 4, it's a bit shorter of a wrench, so it lets you back away that, rotate the rod easier. And I guess you'll have to take my word for it because I can't show you, but when I slide my hand down here now, I'm touching the rod. And you know, as soon as I even try to move a bit back toward the firewall, you can hear the actuator, the wastegate actuator. You can hear the diaphragm moving. So I took up the slack. That noise is a lot less. Right now I'm sliding back and forth. You know, there is a bit of noise from the bushing being worn. You're not going to get around that. This is a temporary fix. You could probably do this 2-3 times and then you'll run out of adjustment, and then your bushing's completely shot inside the actual turbo exhaust housing, which would be right in there. There's a bushing that is going to be cooked eventually, and the whole thing is going to be egg shaped. And if you search for other videos on Wastegate Rattle, you'll see These turbos have maybe like max 50,000 miles on them. They're not completely cooked. So I'm just doing the adjustment. They don't smoke. They have lots of life left in them otherwise. And you know, I'm not sure. I probably just replace them if they completely go out. But that's what this video is about. It's going to shows you how to adjust your wastegate actuator arm. There was another video on YouTube that wasn't bad. I just figured I'd try to get a bit more detail in here to help people. And yeah, that should take care of it. Quiet things down for a little while. I don't know how many miles, but if it doesn't, then you know, I tried. I definitely do feel a difference in the arm. The slack from front to back is virtually gone now. All right, so thanks for watching and good luck.